That is really an amazing wallpaper. But anyways, hey there everyone and welcome to complete backend development using Django. So we are on to a very fresh project. We are starting this up. This is amazing and you're gonna love this. So moving further, we have learned about our CRUD thing, which is create, read, update, and delete. Previously, we have created a lot of projects using templates and everything. Now in this project, we'll be using everything what we have learned so far, okay? And what we want to design now is this guy. So you will find in your exercise file, there is something known as to-do underscore assets, and we'll be using that. And obviously it is not at all compulsion that you should be using my assets only. Just create your own assets as well. This is not at all a big deal. And obviously everybody can design this if you have taken my front end course or maybe somewhere else. So let's just open this up index.html. This is a pretty simple or simplest to do possible here. And it is using some of the icons here. These icons are from Font Awesome. Notice to do and then really nice awesome check mark. And we have a Django to do. Really nice colors is there on writing. There is a delete completed as well, which changes the color on being pressed. Similarly for the assignment as well. Obviously you're going to get assignment. Then you can enter your sample things here. Now notice very closely here that some of them are marked as a cross and some of them are this. So let's just understand that how we are going to accomplish this task of having a to do. We will be having our front end already ready. We want to learn how we can implement the backend part or the Django part in that. So just to give you an idea, we won't be wasting time on the front end part. So let me open up a new window. Where is my atom? There we go. And this is my atom. Let's open up this assets here and let's just drag and drop this to do here. So if you notice in the index.html, we are using obviously the font awesome icons here. The interesting part here is this input group. So we have to create a form. Obviously this already might have been clicked onto your brain that we are having some font awesome input group here. So we need to create a form.py. We need to use Django form, and this is the input where we'll be entering the form. So that's part one of that. Then we are having some of the buttons. So this is our button which submits the thing. So obviously it needs to be going somewhere. So do it as soon as you press that. We'll be having our custom URL or custom view for that for hitting the submit. That's one part. We can understand that. Then in the delete complete, we do have our this href kind of thing going on to a new view or new URL, so we can have that. And that is like pretty basic part. We can have our href part here, no big deal. And then the last thing that you can notice here is this unordered list. So we'll be just repeating a loop through the unordered list in whatever the things are there in the database. And the next thing is you can notice here that there are two types of CSS being written here. List group item, and this is for the things which are not completed, like record Django videos, and that are those who are marked check. We are adding an extra CSS here for them, which is to do and dash completed. And the way how we are going to perform this is really simple. We'll be putting a loop, and inside the loop we are putting a condition that if the to do item, which is obviously going to be a boolean from the database, so if boolean returns a true, then use this guy to be repeated, else part use this part to be repeated. Okay, I hope it was a little bit clear. If it's not much clear, don't worry, it will get much clearer. And obviously we are using some of the custom CSS as well as the custom JS, so we need to learn how we can just put them there. Okay, obviously we'll be using some of the static files for that. So it's a pretty clear-cut project, and in fact I would recommend you to just go ahead before me and at least try to create models and register them in the admin. That would be easy part. If you want to go further into that, like creating your own views and URLs, that would be really an awesome thing. But I don't think so that you are still ready for that, but at least for the models you are completely ready. Okay, so I think that's it. Now we can go ahead and start doing our project work. So fire up your terminal and let's bring that here. CD, desktop, and then we're gonna have Django exercise. Let's do a quick ls. So this is our to-do assets. We have done 06 project 6. Let's do project 7. So I'm gonna make directory there 07 project 7, I think that's it. Let's go into that 07 project 7. So do a quick ls, nothing is here. So we're gonna call this as my to-dos. Okay, so again, it's really simple. We have to start this. So in order to start a Django project, that should be pretty easy. And we're gonna simply say Django admin start project, and we're gonna call this as my website, because in the website again we'll be having a to-do. So my website, there we go. Okay, hit an enter there, and it should be creating the stuff for you really quickly. Okay, that looks pretty, it's taking a little bit while, but no big deal. Okay, so that is being done. Now I want to create my to-do here, so I'll go inside this. Oops, let's go here, cd, and my website, do a quick ls. Can I find manage.py? Of course, yes, so I can run that. Python 3 manage.py start app, and I'm gonna call this as to do. Obviously that's a good name, and there we go, pretty quick. Let's open up our Atom. I want to create a new window, and obviously I can just close this. I don't need you anymore, and just go up here and 07. Okay, you can be here. 07 project, my website, everything is here. I'll just drag and drop this folder so I can have it to do here. Okay, looks pretty good. Now obviously the first step would be to register our app in our settings.py. So let's just go into my website, settings.py. We called it to do, so we'll just go into the settings, and we're gonna call this as to do housekeeping. Okay, and obviously we have to redirect our URL as well, so that should be pretty easy part. The first step is to have include. There we go. The second step is to simply say path, and let's just make it onto a home directory. Obviously if you want to have like /to-do, that is also fine, you know that already, so no big deal there. And we're gonna say include, and this is gonna include something known as todo.urls. Okay, urls.py. And obviously we haven't created our urls.py inside this to do, so we can do that right now. And we're gonna create a new file, and it's gonna call it as urls.py. So there we go, hit enter. Now in this urls.py, we're gonna copy everything from here, just for the sake, so that we don't make any mistake. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And okay, what we can do next is we can get rid of this, obviously, and we don't need the admin as well. And we need to have a view index, so we can just get rid of this. Okay, now obviously we can render something right now, so it is actually always a confusing process that whether should you go for the URLs first or view first or model first or just like that. But anyways, we can just look for views dot, this is going to be index, and let's assign it a name as well. If I can type that correctly, name is going to be equal to index. Okay, we'll work out on the rest of the things later on. Now I think how we're going to proceed in this is, first of all, we're going to just render or throw something like a hello world or something, and then first we are going to focus on models because that's the easy part. Then we are going to register our models to our admin.py, and then we'll come back onto the views and we'll create our views, and then finally we are going to create our URLs for that. Something like this. It looks like a plan. Okay, and obviously this is going to be like easy project to do, is not really hard. So I think that's it. Let's catch up in the next video because it's already going a little bit longer. So that's it for this video, and obviously I would highly recommend you to go a little bit fast forward than me. But anyways, if you want to follow me along, this is a great project. That's it for this video. I'll catch you up in the next one. Hey there everyone, and welcome to Complete Backend Development using Django. So moving further, first and foremost, I misspelled a couple of things. You might have already noticed in the past video, but I just noticed it. So I misspelled the include here. Obviously we don't need include here, so I can just delete that. But obviously since it's being copied and pasted from here, we made a mistake here. So just include here, D include, and I accidentally wrote it here correctly. I don't know how I did that, but yeah, I do make a lot of mistakes in spelling, so just bear with me. Okay, so now we have created our views index, and there we go. Now, obviously, the first thing that I want to focus is on the models.py and attaching that to the admin.py. But we need something in the views, otherwise it's gonna say that, hey, I will throw you an error, something like that. So we have done that in one of the previous videos. Let's just give it a HTTP response, so it just works. So we're gonna say from Django.http, we are going to import HTTP response. There we go. I hope I wrote that correct. If not, the Django server is going to tell us at the runtime. So we're going to define our index. Okay, and obviously it's going to take request. There we go. And we can simply say, you know what, just return response for me. HTTP response, that is going to be saying my to-do app. And that looks actually cool with 2 caps and 1 lowercase. Okay. So we have got this. Obviously, we will be deleting this response and everything. We don't want this to be, but right now I just want the app to be up and running somehow. So save that and let's just go back to this guy, and I can simply say Python 3 manage.py run server, and there we go. And okay, views is not defined. Obviously, I have actually created in the URLs, but I haven't imported that. So importing the things is actually really simple. Okay, come on, write it here. It just simply says from the current directory, I want to import everything from views. There we go, should be fine and okay. And from dot import views, why are you having a problem now? Let's just hit a Control C and try to run that again. And why are you having issues? Okay, it's not from, it's from, so my mistake. And there we go, finally it's up and running. So we can just copy this. There we go, copy, and bring this up. Let's just run that. And my to-do app, that's not so bad, but it's not really amazing. So, okay, I'll work with that. Now, what I want to do is, as of now, I want to work in the models so that I can see that on my admin panel. Remember, super user makes me remind me of the Superman again. Anyways, let's just go on to our models.py and create our model. So if you want to go ahead before me, go ahead, do that. We're going to call this as a class, and we're going to call this as to do. Obviously, it's a class. So first word should be uppercase. And then we're going to be bringing up models.model. You must have done that pretty much number of times, so it should be really clear. And then there are 2 fields. The one is obviously the complete. So complete, and that complete is going to come up from models dot. You might have already heard about it or have read about a little bit in the documentation, which is a Boolean field. And obviously we can pass a parameter here, which is default, if I can write that correct, default. Okay, now looks good. And that is going to be false. Okay, so that's the first part. We have done that. Now the next part is the text or the to do. So I'm going to call this as, let's just call this as to do. It can be a little bit confusing, but I'm going to call this as to do text. Okay, so it doesn't really make, because otherwise we're making a lot of to do's here. So it can be a little bit confusing. So to do text, it's going to be models dot, let's just use a char field here. Obviously you can use text field as well. Totally on you, char field. And I'm going to use max underscore length. And let's just say 50 is more than enough for having a to do. Maybe later on you can just revise the version here, so no big deal. And let's just define our underscore str underscore with a parameter self. And I can simply say, you know what, just return me to do text, and obviously I have to say self dot. Okay, so it will look a little bit decent in our admin field as well. So I think it looks pretty good. Okay, now the next thing that we have to do is go into our admin.py and register this as well. Obviously, you know that. So go to your this guy and register here. So we're gonna say from dot models, we are going to import, I don't know, TODO. Yep, we are gonna import TODO. And make sure you write that correct, not like me. So TODO, and we're gonna simply say admin dot site dot register, and please register my TODO. There we go. So looks pretty good. Now we have to migrate the things and all of these stuff. So let's just try that out. And we are gonna quit the server, and we are going to say, first of all, let's just say Python Control L, Python 3 manage.py, and we're gonna simply say migrate, so that it just migrates the existing stuff. Okay, and then we are gonna say Python.3 manage.py make migrations, and we're gonna make migration for TODO, all lowercase, TODO, and there we go, migration is successful. And then we are gonna say again, you know what, migrate, and there we go. Looks pretty good so far. And now we have to create a super user. So we're gonna again call our manage.py. Don't you get sometimes feeling that this manage.py is like super powerful file? We can do so many things, migrations, super user, running the server and whatnot. So manage.py, let's just create a super user, and I'm gonna put my name here and email address, why not? There we go. And password, there we go again. Looks good. Super user created successfully. And then I can call run server, and voila, no errors at all. All the time when I restart the server, right from the days when I learned about Red Hat certification and exam, whenever things get restart, it just pumps my heart. So let's just go back there and run that. Looks good. And then we can go to admin. Looks good. Run that, and my password. There we go. Okay, looks pretty good. Let's just have a couple of to-dos, and we're gonna add that obviously. So we have a checkbox that says complete and to do. Obviously, if the complete box would have been at the bottom, it would have looked good. So we're gonna say my first to do is here, and we are not gonna check it as complete. Save that. Let's add a couple of more to do so that we have something to work on with. And the second one is record videos for Django, and obviously it's completed, not fully, but yeah, partially. And let's just add one more. This is gonna be like go to swimming, and this is not yet complete. I didn't went for swimming. Let's just, for the fun sake, add one more. Bear with me. And this is gonna be record videos for YouTube. Didn't did that today, but I'm gonna mark that complete anyways. So there we go. So now that we have some data to work on with, I think it's pretty rock solid, and we can just go back home. Okay, so this is working really fine, and recent actions, that's actually pretty beautiful. So this looks good. Now our models is here and our views is not there. So now the next thing that we will be working is bringing up our form.py and bring up our static templates as well. So that should be nice, but we're gonna do all of that in the next video. So that's it for this video, and let's catch up in the next one. Hey there everyone, and welcome to Complete Backend Development using Django. In this video, we're gonna set up our templates, not perfectly, but yes, almost like that. And also I'll give you a couple of reading materials, because I know a lot of people in Python are confused in decorators and all these stuffs, and we'll be using these decorators here. So don't worry, I'll give you that, a couple of lines of reading material, just a page, not a big deal. So let's just go ahead and create our new folders here. So we need two folders in our to-do app, the templates and the static. And that's it. So let's just go into the to-do, create a new folder. And the first one is going to be templates. I hope I wrote that correct. Templates. I always like to be double sure because I know I'm pretty habitual of making these mistakes. And right click, new folder, and this is going to be static. Okay. And I also like to create a new folder inside that with the name of to do. Now this is totally a personal preference. I like to do it because sometimes app also contains a variety of templating and stuff. So I like my files to be organized. If you don't want to do that, you can just place them directly there as well. No big deal. So here we want to place a couple of files and folders here. So it would be really good if I just do it directly here. So first of all, I'll go into to-do assets in the to-do. And I would need this index.html file. So I'll copy that. That is going to be go directly into 07 project 7 website to do templates to do. So this will go directly here. Obviously it will not work because we need to load the static files and stuff like that. Let's go back, and this time we need from the to-do assets, we would need CSS and this JS files. So let's just select both of them, copy that, and we'll be just pasting them directly in our static. So go here to do. I know this is a lot of path I'm traveling, but you know it already. It's not a big deal. So static, and in the to-do, I want to paste my CSS and JS file. Okay. So this is like step one. And obviously we will be working on a couple of stuffs here. It is not like it's gonna go originally and it's gonna just work. We need to load a couple of static stuff as well. So let's just try to do that in here, and let's just save the admin, and let's first go into the templates and index.html. So what are the things that we need to do? First and foremost, we need to load the static parts. So this goes here, 2% sign. And then we're going to say load static. Okay. And obviously this href is not going to work like that. So we have to say, okay, how do we do that is, let's just put first of all this. Okay, let me just cut that entirely. It's making me a little bit confusing here. So cut that, use curly braces here, and then %sign. There we go. Then we're going to use a command URL, and then in code we can just paste that. And obviously this is going to come up from static, not from like that. It is going to come from to do, then a slash. Obviously make sure you check out the path here, because static just gives you till here, and then you're mentioning to do, and then CSS, and then here are the files, our flatly and the styles. So this should go exactly same here as well, at the bottom one as well. Copy that, and let's just paste that. And this time this is going to go for styles.css, this one. So let's just change that, styles.css. Okay, so this part is done. Obviously we are taking reference of these Google APIs and the font awesome directly from the web, so shouldn't be a big deal. But there are a couple of files here as well, so it's gonna go exactly same as what we are having, these JavaScript file. But even if you don't put the JavaScript file, not a big deal, but let's just for the sake of it have it. So I can just copy and paste that. It's already on my clipboard. So inside the to do, oops, let me hit command Z and see it was a jQuery. And it should be pretty easy, although we don't need jQuery and Bootstrap here, but obviously we can just link them directly here. And in fact, you know what? I don't think so we need them. If we'll need them, we can add them, just like the exact same process. So right now I'm going to just delete that. It was a template that I copied and pasted, so it just came up from there. So it should be pretty good. We can add the stuff later on in here. So this is all what we want to do right now. Now inside the views, we can just render this right now here. So let's just go back to our views.py. Obviously we can just remove this. We don't need HTTP response now. Okay, and I think this is all good, and we can just return a render request now. So let's just remove that, and we're gonna say render, and this is gonna render. We're gonna pass, like always, 3 parameters: the request, the template name, and then simply the context which we haven't created yet. So let's just do that request. And then our template is actually inside the to-do. So we'll mention to-do slash index.html, and we will not be passing any context as of now. So this should be all good. And our server is up and running. And let's just see if we are able to load our to-do app directly there. And there we go. We do have to-do CS. Okay, what's it saying? Flatly.min.css is not available. Okay, let's just see what wrong we are doing in the templating. Index.html URL to do, and it should be there. To do CSS flatly.min.css. It is there. Why you are making a mess there? Okay, sometimes these things do happen, so we have to take it down. And you know what? What I mentioned here is a URL, which was completely wrong. We need to go into the static folder. So my bad, totally my bad. And you might have already pointed it out. Static. Some of you might be getting frustrated why he's making mistake, but that's how development is being done. It's not like I'm doing it. So let's just hit a Control-C, try to run the server again and see. It's looking good so far. And let's just try to hit a reload. And there we go. It's all looking pretty awesome and pretty beautiful. So templating is done. That's the part one, which we were worried about. And obviously we will be working on these views.py quite a little bit. We just don't want to just print it out, but step-by-step process. Okay. Now, before we go ahead and write all of our views and stuff like that, I want you to redirect to a couple of articles that you should be reading around. And the first one is Primer on Python Decorators. Now, this is a well written article. Realpython.com. Thank you so much. You guys have written really nicely. I really do appreciate that. So I think you should read that in case you are still confused about what are decorators, how they improve the functions, and what are these. It's a pretty basic, very solid example that are being given to you. I don't think so there can be more better reference as here. We will be using that in the post request. So just read that. In case you want to read a little bit more on the decorators for Django, although it's not needed, you can just check it out there as well. A couple of lines of example, that's it. But again, highly recommend to read this one, Real Python. Thank you so much guys for writing this amazing article. So I think that's pretty much it. And in the next video, we'll be first covering down our views, and then we'll be working on our URLs as well. So that's it for this video, and let's catch up in the next one. Hey there everyone, and welcome to Complete Backend Development using Django. Now the first and foremost thing that I need to do is save all of my files and close them, because there is like too much going on in here, which makes me a little bit confused. And I can just open up the views.py. Okay. And also I would like to just close all of these guys. Makes me a little bit confusing here. Okay, so what is our next plan? Next plan is really simple. First, we're going to work with forms.py, because I hope you noticed that we do have a form. We might want to replace it with our Django form with all those attributes so that it looks exactly same like this. That's going to be step number one. Then in the step number two, we are going to be working with our views.py, where we'll be having all of our views. Now, obviously, we should be mentioning first in the URLs that what view we are expecting. But we'll be first declaring those views, and then we'll be working with our urls.py, and finally with our templates to edit the required stuff. Sounds like a plan. But first thing and foremost thing, we don't have forms.py, so we're going to right click on the to-dos and create a new file, and that is going to be forms.py. Okay. So there we go, and it should be really easy because we need just one text field there, which is obviously a character field. So we're going to simply say from Django import forms. That's the easy part. And then we're going to have a class, and we're going to call this as to-do form or anything, whatever you like to call that. So to-do form, it's going to come up from forms.form, and there we go. Notice there is a forms.form. Whatever you're importing, it's from that. Okay, that looks pretty good. We need to put a colon there. Okay. Now, what you want to call that, let's call it as simply text form or maybe text, and this is going to come up from forms.char field. Oops, char field. And again, we're going to have a max underscore length, and that should be equal to whatever you have created in the models. That is like 50, but it's totally on you, and it should be exactly same as in models. We don't want any conflict in here. That's the best practice. Okay, so that is our max length. Okay, now this is one thing. Now the next thing that we want to have here is widget, because without widget there is no form. So widget is going to be equal to forms dot, let's use a text input. If you want to use the text area as well, that's fine too. Let's use the text input. It needs to have parentheses here. There we go. And in here, we're going to have our attrs, which is attributes. There we go. So what we're going to do in this attributes is we're going to have our all the classes or stuff which is there in our templates, index.html. Let's just copy this entire input, copy that, and we're going to paste that here for a minute, or maybe for a moment, and just copy and paste all of these. So it's going to have it's just having a type. I don't think so we need a type, because we have already mentioned the widget as text input, so we don't need this type. We just need class and placeholder, so that should be pretty easy. So what we're gonna say is, you know what, you're gonna have a class, and your class is gonna have a name of form dash control, not control. There we go. Separated by comma. The next one is placeholder, and its value is gonna be a Django to do. There we go. So this was pretty easy and pretty sweet. And obviously don't forget to delete this. I did that mistake once. So this is our forms. That was pretty easy, don't you think so? And we'll be importing that and running that in a minute at variety of places, but right now it's completely okay. Just save that, and we can even close this so that we can just work on this. And index.html, we will talk to you later. Right now, let's just go back to our views. We need to define a couple of views here, so let's just talk about them. And first of all, we need a render. Obviously, will need a redirect as well, because once the form is being submitted, we want to reload the page as well. So that is going to be one stuff. We will be importing the decorators and stuff a little bit later, so let's just worry about that later on. Now we want to import two things. One is the forms, obviously, and the models as well, so that we can pass on the context. Pretty self-explanatory. So from dot forms, we're going to import, we call that as to do, not like that, to do form or forms. I usually call them form, but just like you know me, to do form, just like you know me, I always like to forget things. And the next thing is models. So we're going to say from dot models, we are going to import to do. I hope I called that as a to do. Again, you know, this forgetting habit is actually good, because you don't want to rely on remembering the things. You can just go into models and you know exactly what I'm calling here or what I'm importing here. That's a super, I have seen programmers who have absolutely no idea what they are writing here. They just know that I need to write it. Okay, so that is like basic stuff. And now we need to pass on a few things in the index file. Obviously, we need everything from the database. So let's just call this as simply my to do from database, or let's just call it my to do. And this is going to come up from to do dot objects, and what are the objects are. And we are going to just pass on a command here, kind of an order by, just sorting out. And we're going to order by them by the default of ID. Okay, there we go. And then obviously we need to create an object from form as well. And that is going to be coming up from the to do form. So to do form. So let's just create an object from there. And then we need to pass on the context as well. So context, and that is going to be equal to, and we need to pass on two things here, the to-do list and the list that is coming up from the database. And we need to pass on the form as well. So that should be pretty easy. And we're going to call this as my to do. Obviously needs to go in the quotes, and come on, my to do. And that is going to have a value of my to do. There we go, my to do. And then separated by comma, let's just pass on a form, and that's value as form. Okay, so now this is aware of the context. Not yet. We need to make sure that it is aware of that context. We have passed on the request, we have passed on the to-do. So far we have seen that in the context we are just passing this guy, but this time we're passing the form as well. So let's just do that. And just separate by comma, we do have now context aware things. Okay. And now I can get rid of these extra spaces because you already know what we are doing here. So no need to have like unnecessary white spaces there. Okay, so this sounds like fun. This is like our basic index here. And what we need to worry about, since our page is having the to-do, so whenever user fills up that form, we need to pass on that to-do to the same page. So we need to learn that what kind of request is there. Now, since our same page is handling the two kind of request, that is why we are using decorators here. So I hope you have read this thing. And in the very top, they mention that it's really clearly okay, where that is. Okay, decorator is a function that takes another function and extends that behavior of the later function without explicitly modifying it. So it's not going to modify it, but it's going to kind of enhance its functionality. And in this case, we are enhancing this index method as kind of a, we are just enhancing its functionality so that it can write that as well. Okay. So in order to have this, first of all, we need to import that. So we're going to say from, and this is a long one, Django.views.decorators.http. This is a long one, I know that. And we're going to import require underscore post. So we do need to have a post in order for this decorator to work. So first of all, we're going to say, you know what, whatever you're importing in your index request, we need that. So we're going to say require underscore post. So that's our decorator being defined. And then we're going to define our new. So this is going to be like a new view. We're going to call this as add new to do. This is like what we are having, add new to do. Obviously, this is going to have a request or EQ. Okay, come on. Oh, come on. Let me write request here. And there we go. Finally, I was able to write that. And the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to have a form here. So there we go. And form is going to be coming up from to do form. And we are not going to be taking it like empty. Obviously, the request is going to be coming up from post. Okay, that's one thing to get started. And the next thing is we need to check if the form is valid or not. User might be trying to submit an empty form or can we have a variety of requests here. So let's just try that out using if and else case. So we can simply do that. In the condition, we're going to check if form dot using an inbuilt method, which is underscore valid. Thank you, Django, for this. And then we can just hit enter, can remove this pass. And we're going to create an object from our model. So let's just call this as my underscore new underscore to do, something like that, maybe. And then we're going to create an object from our models. Notice we called it as to do. So we're going to be creating an object from this to do. And it requires you to pass on a parameter here. So the parameter is whatever the text you're calling it. And in the models, I called it as to do text. So I'm going to copy that. Let's just come back here, and that is my to-do text. That is going to be equal to request, come on, request, which is coming up in the format of post. And obviously, I'm not sanitizing the input here. We have already talked about the sanitization. You can surely do that. Not a big deal. Okay. Make sure you do a kind of a self-checking thing here. Just kind of assignment. Do that. Okay. And then we're going to call it as my underscore new underscore to do dot save. So it gets saved into the database. That is easy part. And we are going to, in any case, we have to return a redirection as well. So whatever happens, even if it saves or doesn't save, we need to return that. So return a redirect of index. Okay, and this index is exactly same as in the URLs. I'm mentioning this index. Okay, I hope you are aware of every single situation or command that I'm writing here. So this is our like all the things that are working. Still, the two things are still remembered. We want our to-dos to be clickable so that once they are complete, anybody can click them and can simply say that, hey, you know what, it's done. And we also have a delete button so that we can work on that. So I think we are going to work on this in the next video. So that's it for this video, and let's catch up in the next one. Hey there everyone, and welcome to Complete Backend Development using Django. So next forward, let's just go ahead and create a couple of more views. The first view is like basic loading of the database, which hasn't been yet set up because we need to do a lot of things in the index.html, of course, in the template. The second one is adding this one. So this is almost done. Now we need two more. The first one is going to be like when we click on the to-do itself, we're going to be taken to a new view. And the next one would be the deleting as well. So let's just do that. So we're going to be defining this one for, we have got add new do. We're going to say complete to do kind of stuff like that. Okay, we don't need require any kind of decorator or anything for that. And we're going to call this as complete underscore to do, or maybe just one word, complete to do, and then delete to do. So pretty much easy. I think I can find out a better name for that, like add new to do, complete new to do. You know, I want to do that. But again, let's just go there, and we're going to call this as request. One more thing that we need to pass on for this view is going to be our to-do ID as well. Now, this to-do ID is going to be passed on here. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. This is going to be our PK, the primary key. Okay, so let's just call this as to-do ID, just like that, or maybe I can use an underscore there so that it becomes a little bit more clear. Okay, so first of all, in order to have a complete, we're going to call this as to do. This is going to be a to do object. So let's just call this as my to do would be good. So my to do, and then in the my to do, we're going to create an object of to do. In this object, first we need to get this object. Okay, so to do dot objects dot get, and the best way to get an object is always through the to-do ID. In this case, of course, because the primary key is like the unique one, and we can get an object using this primary key. So we're going to say primary key is going to be equal to to-do underscore ID. Now here's a quick word here. The to-do ID is going to be set up using the url.py. Okay, so it is not being set. Don't get confused. You can name it anything. This is once like a parameter which is coming from somewhere, and you can call it anything. Okay, so just feel free to do so. And then what we're going to do in this my to do, now this my to do holds up this object which is coming up from this primary key, which is already there in the database. So we're going to say my to do, and we're going to access a property for that. And that property is defined in the models, which is like complete. Okay, so we're going to access that dot complete, and we are going to set that equal to true. That's it. Okay, and then we're going to call this as my to do dot save. Don't forget to save, it's a common mistake. Okay, once it is done, obviously what we need to do is copy this line of the redirection, and just no matter what happens, we have to pass on this. So there we go, no big deal. So this complete to do was pretty easy. Now let's just go ahead and work on with the last one as well, which I think should be super easy for you. So we're going to call this as define, and we are going to say complete to do. We did, okay, this is complete to do. So we are going to be working on delete to do as well. So we're going to call this as delete to do. I think, yep, delete to do is absolutely rhyming there. Okay, and we're gonna have a request. There we go, put a colon there, and there we go. What we're gonna do is to do dot objects, and then we're gonna use a filter. Of course, go ahead, read out a little bit more about the filters in the Django that you can use, but one that we'll be using is using this complete, and then you can use underscore underscore exact, because we are looking for an exact value of it. And the exact value is true. So those who are completed or marked as complete can all be deleted. And in order to delete that, that's really simple. Just use a delete method here. And this is where I love Python. No extra clutter there. Absolutely simple. And really what we need to do is just hit an enter and just copy and paste. This should be my clipboard. So just paste that, and there we go. You have deleted all the completed to-do list. Okay. So now our views are all done. Now what we need to do is go ahead into URL and mark those URLs as well. So for these, like what are they? 1, 2, 3, 4. We have to pass on 4 URLs for that. So let's just go on to URL. Now the first one is views.index. Of course, just import the views first of all. This is the first part. And then we are going to be adding stuff for here. So first, the second thing that we are going to be doing is, let's just hit Command-Shift-D to duplicate that. Now the path for that is going to be add. We are not going to be going anywhere, but we need to have that. Now the view to add new, this one is what we called as add new to do. So they just copy and paste that there. And the name for it is going to be add. Let's press Command-Shift-D, and the next one is for the complete. So let's just have a URL for that. That is going to be complete, and in the URL we'll be passing this to-do ID as well. So in this we can simply say to-do underscore ID. You can call it as integer ID or whatever you like to have. I think this to-do ID in this Angular bracket is going to work fine. If not, we can again come back and work with that. So this one is going to be for completed. So copy that. This is the one, this is the path, or this is the thing URL which will be going into the clickable list as well. So let's just have this guy as complete to do, and we're going to call this as completed or complete, just like that. So complete is good. Command-Shift-D. The last one is the delete as well. So we are going to call this as delete, and we call that as delete to do. So you know what, I'm going to call this as delete, just delete, and we're going to call this as delete to do. Copy that, paste that here, delete to do, and its name is going to be delete. Okay, so these URLs are saved, but it's not going to work because these 4 URLs need to be added in the template as well. And it should be pretty easy to edit off this template. First thing that we need to do is have this. So let's just open this. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Sometimes I do. I think a lot. So sometimes I get ahead of myself. So first thing in the form, we need to take the action. So action is going to be going to, let's just use a 2 curly braces and %sign, %sign, and this is going to go to URL. And the URL for this is going to go to add. Okay, I hope I call this as add. So this is my first URL where this form is going to be submitted. The method is post is absolutely fine, and rest of the stuff is looking good. Obviously, since I'm into the form, I need to add the CSRF token. So why not to do it right now? Always don't forget that, however. So CSRF underscore token. There we go. Okay, next up is this input guy that we want to replace. So this should be coming up from our forms, forms.py. So it will be called as forms.text. And let's go here. And we can cut that, Command X to cut that. And now let's just hit an enter. And in place of that, we can simply use this sign, and we can say form.text, and should be looking good. It will come to the things in a minute. Okay, this is submit is completely okay because this is going to submit to our add, and then it will try to go into the URL for add. We have mentioned go to the views, add new, then it will go to here and it will try to add new and will perform all of this task that we have tried to do. Okay, so that was a pretty good tutorial for telling you how the things are working. That looks good. And then we are into this delete complete. So this delete complete need to be wrapped, this button needs to be wrapped inside an clickable. So we're going to wrap that inside an anchor tag. So just go back here, use A, and there we go. I'm going to cut this out and we'll place it outside this here. Command V, need to indent that a little bit. There we go. And in this href, we need to pass on that URL for deleting. So let's use curly braces and then 2% sign, and then mention the URL. And the URL that I want to go for this delete. Okay, where is the delete? This is the delete. This is the delete. So I have named it as just the delete. So I'm going to copy that. And this is going to go to URL delete. Okay. So this also looks good. Okay, just step by step, make sure you don't do any mistake here. And then we are into this list group. So we need to iterate through this. Right now, this is like permanent. We want to come it from the database. So let's just hit a couple of lines of enter, and then we're going to work on that. Obviously, what we need is a for loop here. So 2% sign, and then it should be really simple. For t in to do, or what we called it, let's go to views.py, and here let's just see what we called our context here. There we go, and we called it as my to do. So let's just call this go into index. For to do in my to do, that should be it. So now it's repeating, and we need to end that as well. So let's just say %, and then we are gonna say end for, but we just don't want to do that. We don't want to right now. If you're gonna just say, hey, you know what, copy this and paste that here, and you replace this guy simply with 2 curly these signs, and you just say t dot text. Notice I'm calling it t. The t is coming from here, and the text is coming up from the models, which is to do text. So my bad, it should be to do text, and there we go. So it should be able to do it, but we don't want to do that. We want to use an if and else clause here, so that all those who are completed gets the CSS of this, otherwise they don't. So there are a variety of ways of doing it. Let's just say how we want to proceed. So we're gonna again use these brackets and %, and we're gonna check that. So we're gonna say if to do or if just t, in this case, if t is t dot complete. So obviously that's gonna give us a true or the false. Okay, so if it is completed, what we want is this line. So copy that and paste that here. Okay, and this is the case for the completed, so they get a mark of completed. We need an else part here as well. So %, and we're gonna say else. Okay, looks good. And we need to end the if as well. So we'll be ending it just right below here, just below the for loop. Indentation is super important because otherwise I do get confused. And there we go. We need to end this. So we'll be saying it here, %, and we will be saying end if. Okay, looks pretty good. And we can actually copy this, and we can just paste that here. So there we go. It looks pretty good. And right now, this guy, which is not completed, is not clickable. Okay, so we need to take care of that as well. So all I can do is hit an A here, tab. So there we go. I can just cut this and paste it at the bottom. So now it's a clickable link. Obviously, it's not going anywhere. So we can use our curly braces and the %, 2 of them, of course. Use a command URL, and then we are gonna pass on a URL, which I don't know what we called. We called it as complete. So we'll be saying complete. Paste that here. We need to pass on our ID as well. So we'll be saying t.id, because although we haven't mentioned the ID in the models field, but it is always there, so you can use it whenever you like. So I think this should be it. And obviously there will be a couple of errors and we need to fix them. Okay, surprisingly there are no error, but I don't believe that because obviously our programs do get errors. Not a big deal. Okay, let's just go back here and hit enter there. Okay. So obviously things are coming up from the database as well from this. Let's just check it out. A good way is notice on the left hand side bottom one. So if I check on to do, okay, nothing is happening. Please fill in this field. So test 1 is a good name, and hit a do. There we go. It gets added, and there we go. Test 1 is coming here. Obviously these are like the permanent one. Let's get rid of them, making things confusing. And save that. Go back up here, hit a reload. Okay, obviously some of my CSS is like a little bit not working good because this is like a permanent link and this is not. So okay, I screwed up a little bit in the CSS part, but I can fix that. I can just copy this and paste this here as well. Okay, and this is not gonna go anywhere, so I'll just put a hash there and copy that, and this is gonna be a link for that. So paste that, and it should be looking up a little bit good. Okay, we don't have any line breaks there as well. Oh my goodness, this is so bad. So we're gonna have a BR here at least. Save that and have a little bit of the spacings. Okay, maybe we can work on with that later on a little bit there. I know it's looking really embarrassing here, but okay, come on, excuse me there. So okay, what we can do right now is just check mark there. Okay, it gets like that, and there we go. And let's just say delete completed. It's get deleted, and let's just restart everything. That is make a to-do app, and app there, hit a oops, make a to-do app, and let's just do it. There we go, make a to-do app. Okay, make less mistake in typing, and that's not gonna get completed anytime soon, but there we go. Since we ordered it by using ID, that's looking pretty good. And take some time to record YouTube videos, and I just hit enter there. It's also working pretty good, and I have made it to do apps, so I can just cross it off, just click it there. I cannot click it again, but as an assignment you can take that challenge that if somebody clicks that back again, you can just rewrite a URL, or you can just write a URL for that and a view, so that it just unchecks that and just takes it and just marks that complete as a false. So take that as a simple assignment and just hit there. Now notice this is like working really good, and just paste it a couple of more. So there we go. Now there is an assignment as well for you, and in the assignment what I really want you to do is just kind of a reset everything, regardless of marked or unmarked. Just reset everything, and it should look something like this guy. It should look like this. So this is our reset state, and there we go. If possible, you can also kind of do a pop-up or maybe a message in the models for a viewer that hey, everything is being reset. So that would be really cool. Also try to make it a little bit more better CSS as what I've done here, but again, this is absolutely great. So here comes the end of our another awesome app, the To-Do app. I hope you have learned quite a lot in this, and that's it for this video. I'll catch you up in the next one.